some tremendous work around this film in the community. And so today we have our crew here with us, and we're excited. Some of you have probably met them around town, but we're excited to give everybody the opportunity to meet our director, our author, and one of our producers, Cinematographer, is here with us. And they're going to be open to your questions that you might have about the project and where we are right now in the midst of it. So we're excited to have you all here with us. And bring them out.
We're going to bring them out, and just Vic was just out capturing B-roll with our director, our cinematographer, and the rest of our crew. But before we bring in Todd, Will, and Jason, we want to introduce others who are part of the crew as well. We want to start with two young ladies in the back who are part of our creative team at GRMIFI. Both Era and Lynn are both film students or graduates of film colleges and have been working with us as creators since the onset. So let's give them a big round of applause.
David is here as well.
And David as well, David Benoit. If you've not seen the artwork on the window out here that lays out many of the characters in a city within a city, please make sure you do that before you leave. Dave did the artwork there. They've also, with Benoit, with Mad Ethnic Productions, created the artwork for the 49507 project. Let's give Dave a round of applause.
So these guys are a part of what started as our apprentice program. The idea is to create an economic employment base of Black and brown young folks that are interested in working in the film and media industries. What we saw here after a little bit of research was that there was a lot of money being spent in the fields of media and film here in Grand Rapids, videography and such, from our corporate Fortune 500 companies and a lot of the major corporations here in town, but little of that work, very little, was going to Black and brown people. And so what we wanted to do here at GRMIFI was to create a base of young people that could come in and be trained by our professionals working on our films in professional settings, supply them with top-notch equipment, right? Kind of alleviate some of these hurdles that we were hearing from these companies, that the quality wasn't up to par, they just didn't know where to reach these individuals, right? And they weren't trained properly. So we're making sure that they're trained properly, we're making sure that they have the equipment available to them, and now we are the connection point for anyone in the city that wants to work with young Black and brown people in the fields of film and media. They come to GRMIFI and they know that these people are trained correctly and they have the equipment to their access that they need, and they're gonna be overseen by professionals who know exactly what they're doing in those fields. And so that's our mission here. We're just getting started, first year, and we're looking to grow that exponentially, the word I'm looking for, in the years to come. We're looking to bring in a lot of people 18 and up that are interested in working professionally and getting work in fields of film and media.
Yeah. So let's add as well to that, Kenneth Cortez with Kenneth Cortez Productions. Kenneth, can you come in and wave as well? Who's been one of our creators and has been working with us as well. This is Kenneth Cortez. Also. And so then we want to introduce Denard Lenore, who has been a camera operator, a first KC. He's done so much with us with Lenore Productions. He's probably a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, graduate of Grand Valley Film School as well. How many years ago?
2016.
Oh, 20, yeah, right. So 2016, graduate of Grand Valley State University. Ibrahim here with the handheld camera, Compass School of Arts graduate as well, is a part of our crew. Did I miss anyone, team? We have another partner who's not here right now, but she'll be coming in, Jasmine Fuentes. And so you guys will all meet Jasmine. So without further ado, we'd like to invite in our director. Come on in, Jason Nichols. Give Jason a round of applause. However, yeah. And we'd like to invite in our cinematographer, Mr. Will Rouse. Right. And finally, this project would not be here. We wouldn't be here without this depth research and this passion that Dr. Todd Robinson showed and this love for our community with a city within a city. So without further ado, Dr. Todd Robinson. So we're going to jump right into this by giving our partners here an opportunity to introduce themselves and give a little background on how they came to this project. We're going to facilitate a few questions ourselves. Vic and I'll ask a question or two to try to get the conversation going. We'll look and see if we did get any questions from the RSVP, but you all are welcome to ask questions as well. So we'll get started with Jason, our director. Give us an overview of yourself as well as how did you come into the project.
Sounds good. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I'm fairly soft-spoken, so, you know. My name is Jason Nichols. I'm a film director, a creative director. Currently, I am creative director at the Sundance Film Festival. Been there for about a year now. And prior to that, I've been working in the advertising industry for about 20 years as a writer, creative director, and a director for all types of commercials, campaigns, digital products, short films for brands. And a lot of focus on the work that I've done over the past 20 years has been how can we leverage the resources of brands, their marketing power and their reach, and connect them with communities who have needs, small business needs support, community funding and activism support. How do we also support subcultures too? You know, the athletic subcultures, musical, creative subcultures, and so on. So for the past 20 years, my life has been about storytelling. My life has been about finding the best ways to bring real human stories to life and to amplify them to as many people as possible to get further support for the work that they do. I've always had a dream since I was a child to create feature films of all sorts and to tell them from a unique perspective and a perspective of the people who have truly lived these kinds of stories. The way I got connected to this project, I actually kind of posted some of my short film work on a site called Free the Work, and this team happened to see some of the work that I've done. Some of it was, you know, commercial work, but one of them was a very personal story that I made during the pandemic about, you know, being trapped in a home. What does home feel like during a time when you're trapped in it? But also my, you know, strange relationship with the idea of home, and that, you know, I have lived in so many cities and called so many places home, but what really is home? Through that exploration, they saw my work and felt like I could bring this story to life. It's a combination of real life storytelling, my short film, as well as a combination of animation work as well. And so I think that mixture, but also that, you know, vulnerability, that passion, that very human storytelling that they saw in that short film, they felt it could translate to this film as well. The final thing I'll say is, in my several trips to this city, I have been welcomed in a way that was entirely unexpected. You know, a lot of the work that I do is very specific to a tiny bit of the community, but everywhere I've been in this city, anytime they've mentioned a city within a city, people light up. They know about it. They know what that story means. They know how important that story is to the history and also the evolution of this city. and I've been welcomed with open arms. The other thing I've seen is like there is a real desire for more people to know this story. And the one thing I've mentioned to them is there's a weight behind that. There's a huge responsibility that I have and we all have in translating this book in a way that really captures the legacy of this city, captures the beauty of this city, captures the pain of this city, but also the extraordinary potential of this city. And so for me, that's like a huge responsibility. But what that does is instead of like feeling like this heavy weight, there's an energy to it. The people that have embraced me here have energized me in such a way that I can't wait to tell this story. I can't wait to hear more of the stories and find a way to thread them together that builds on top of each other to finally create the story that needs to be told, that needs to be heard and needs to be shared. So I really want to thank everyone here for embracing me, embracing this story, and embracing what we're building here. Thank you.
What's up, guys? I'm Will Rouse. I'm cinematographer for this project. Brief history about me. I've been a DP for about 13 years. I've done projects for Netflix, Showtime, things like that. But more recently, I've been trying to tell more human stories and more personal stories that create change. You know, I'm really big on bridging communities, and I feel like with this project, that's exactly what's going to happen. So I'm just blessed and thankful to be a part of it. Yeah.
So I'm Dr. Todd Robinson. It's good to be home. I'm humbled every time I come to the city and blessed to be a part of this city. Very fortunate, as you could hear, two of the many reasons why I'm excited to be on board on this project. Communicating stories. These are not our stories. They belong to the community. They belong to the people. And as we did with the book, as I did with the book, we're trying to do so in film and try to capture the essence of that and deliver it back to the community and beyond. So I'm thankful to be here. Thank you.
So we're going to do some other introductions as a few other people arrive who have been critically important to this project. We've been working on this production. We're in our 5th year. We came together in 2018, Jasmine, Vic, and myself as producers after linking up with Dr. Robinson. And so we are the executive producers of this project with Dr. Robinson. So we're grateful to Dr. Robinson, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, that he chose us to work with to produce this documentary. He had been solicited really strongly from folks in the community who wanted to partner with Todd. At least 7 different groups over the years, and so we're grateful that Dr. Robinson chose us for this work. So with that, I want to start with a question from the audience versus my asking a question. But if anyone, and ask a tough question, if you have, to our assembled team here. Carl.
Do you think you'll be finished with this project?
I knew that was going to be the first one. I knew it.
Great. So this project, as you know, is a very independent project. And with independent film, you know, there are a great many obstacles that you have to face. Funding is a major obstacle. So, you know, making certain that you have the financing to, one, produce, you know, bring together the team for this, the level of quality for the team for this. You have, you know, we're going to be doing stuff like telling historical narratives that don't have film, that don't have enough photography to properly tell them. So elements like animation are going to be core to the way we tell this story. Visual effects are going to be core to telling this story. It is my goal and a challenge set forth by the team that, you know, we have to honor the ancestors and do it in a way that has never been seen before. And so with that, what we're not doing is creating something splashy for splashy's sake, but we're also not doing what one might call a traditional documentary where you point and shoot and, you know, let just the words carry you. The words are very strong, the stories of people are very strong, but what can we do to amplify this? So I say all that to say, and not to dodge the question, but to give you a little context. This story's going to take a little longer because there's a greater vision that we have for this. Like, by the way, I'm a nut. I'm a very visual storyteller. I'm a very heartfelt storyteller. I have tons of insane references, visually speaking, for how to interpret these stories and to elevate them. So with all of that, we are going to be, fingers crossed, working to wrap production shooting in the next couple of months. There's still a ton more interviews to do. We've been doing a lot of the historical storytelling up to now. And in the next few months, we are aiming to complete some of the storytelling about the history of, or what's happening in Grand Rapids now, and a look at the future of Grand Rapids. So we're gonna wrap that up then. And then we go into that animation work and big assembly work for the entirety of the film. So, you know, that is going to take us through the end of the year, and looking at, fingers crossed, all works, all funding continues to flow. Looking at, I'm hoping at spring for a wrap on the production of this. Do not quote me on that. But, and again, like, I do also want to throw this out. Independent film production is slippery in that when you have a big studio behind you, you have all of the resources you need from the top of production before anything ever happens. You have everything you need to get started and to complete it. With independent film, you know, you're constantly kind of building on what you have done before. With a documentary, there are also new vectors that come in, storylines that you didn't account for when you started this production. You know, to be very specific, as we've been building this story, a storyline like Patrick Leoya's enters into the storyline. That is not something that can be ignored. And in fact, like, when that happened, I paused everything and had to do, you know, some rewriting and reconcepting about how this fits into the story. It's not the center of this story. The center of this story is the history of, but that is a continuation and a reflection on the history that has happened in this city. So we have to be aware and conscious of these new vectors that enter in that are vital to the storytelling and help us build on and add detail to the storytelling. So, you know, as we continue, we're going to be keeping our ear to the street, but definitely looking to wrap this in the most elegant way possible.
So just to quickly add on to that, I think it's important there are some community partnerships that can happen.
Yes, sir.
Some community partnerships that can happen to financially support and help this process move along a little quickly. However, one of the reasons why I linked up with this organization, these Jasmine and Vic and Rod, is because of the detail and precision. This is not a microwave product, right? The many days that I sat in the library, over at Grand Rapids Public Library in particular, 8 hours a day or better, and nobody understood that I was working on anything. You know, the point is to try to get it right. We really just want to try to get it right. So I'm okay taking some more time. I actually appreciate the careful level of detail and concern, and the innovation, as well as the means and mechanisms that we're trying to attempt to tell this story with that are not conventional, to recreate some of that history. But certainly we can rely on the community to help us with this product and this documentary to support us financially.
Yes.
And to that point of details, I am manic about the details. As they know, everything in the frame matters. Everything helps tell that story. When we pick a location, I am manic about that location has to matter. It has to be culturally, historically, personally significant to the story, or we're looking for a new location that is that. So to that point of detail, as detail-oriented as they are, I am that much equally detail-oriented because all of those details matter.
Absolutely. I think John.
Yep.
Yeah, John, and then signing.
Just love your book. You might remember some random GRKS email address that went to you like 5 years ago asking you, is there going to be a sequel? Because I thought, I loved the book, but it got right near the end of the 70s and kind of dropped off. And I'm hopeful there will be a City Within a City Take 2.
So I came prepared to make a joke about there's no need for a second book. but the truth be told, and I think people are fairly aware of this, I've been working on the second part. As life would have it, I have other projects that I'm also addressing. I'm doing a book on black church burnings in America, which is taking us from the entry point of slaves in Massachusetts all the way up to the 2018 church burning of MLK Church in Springfield, Massachusetts. During that time of Obama's first election, my father's church was burned down in 2008. And so it woke me up to a history and a legacy of terror that I had some knowledge of, but not the intimate knowledge that I needed. And so in moving forward, I started addressing that book, and that book is almost complete with University of Massachusetts Press. I had already started the stories and the framework, and over COVID, I've had some time to really dig into this. As Jason said, there's been some recent stories that have now recast and reframed some of these issues. I want to historically bring it back to show how managerial racism continues to apply itself in modern day society, the application of it. And so, yes, I'm working diligently to get to that second book. I hope somebody will be willing to purchase it once it's done.
Thank you. Sonia, did you have a question?
Yeah. My passion is around really capturing what redlining in the city of Grand Rapids and how eminent domain has affected many of our families that have not caught up to the wealth gap due to how eminent domain was claimed and displaced so many families in the city of Grand Rapids, and that happened after the 70s. So is there any interest in really capturing that, telling this story? We still have people out here searching and trying to figure out what really happened and why, and trying to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I would say redlining and eminent domain is a story in and of itself, and a story that has plagued cities across the country without a doubt. I think the incredible complexity of a city within a city is about all of these varied vectors coming into play. So we will be talking about redlining, we will be talking about eminent domain, but we're also going to be talking about the education system, policing, politics, religion, so many different vectors that kind of make this city an extraordinary case study of managerial racism, and the potential and the varied ways over history people have fought against that. So to your point, there is a need for us to speak on all of those to really capture the truth behind the entirety of the history. But in the way that you're speaking about redlining and eminent domain, as I said, that's a story in and of itself, and we don't necessarily have enough time to dedicate to the completeness of that storytelling in this film, but those two issues are absolutely going to be a part of the fabric of this film.
I think Fran had her hand.
I do have a question, thank you. I was wondering, as you talk about the churches in the community, because I'm sure you will, I don't want you to forget, as a Catholic in this community, growing up in this community, it was a fraught experience, and I think it would be interesting to explore that a bit when you talk about religion and churches and their interaction in the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has been an interesting, complex story that we've discussed ourselves, and how the religious community has been a part of the Black freedom struggle fight, but there's also intersections that have created kind of divisions in language and culture between these religious groups as well. How are these systems a part of the greater system as well? So, as you said, fraught, very true. It's a complex story. That in and of itself is its own story. So it's important for us to think about how, as we address this story, he so elegantly interwove so many of these different vectors that have contributed to the problems in the city, but also contributed to progress in the city. We're going to have to address all of them, not necessarily to the depth at which each of us would like to address them, but I think what's most important for us to do at this moment is show that complex intersection of them all, and then find other ways to tell the deeper stories of each one of those vectors.
Kendra, please.
Yeah. My question is for Dr. Robinson. When you first wrote the book, who did you intend to read it, or who was the audience that you hoped for?
Rodney, can you repeat the questions? So this is getting on audio?
Oh, sure, absolutely. The question was, who was the book intended for, Dr. Robinson, when you wrote it, the audience?
So the audience for the book, as I said, well, I haven't said this. As a historian, I'm an activist, and I'm an activist historian. And so I was trying to provide stories of the past for the African American community, and trying to allow a space for all of these voices to find their way into the larger narrative, city narrative. They were active players, active participants. Intentionally, I'm writing through an African American history lens. Understanding that it's for the larger community, because I need everyone. I hope more people would pick it up and see some of the systems of oppression that are within this city that African Americans have had to try to push back and overcome over time.
Yes. Follow up?
A follow-up question. So I first learned of the book. I'm from the Chicagoland area, and when I read your book, it actually had me calling my dad like in the middle of the day, asking him about my own upbringing in Chicago suburbs, and not really understanding a lot that was going on in my upbringing, or even how we ended up in the area that we lived in. And so one thing that I enjoyed about reading it is that you can take from it and really apply it to any other city, almost, and begin to understand your origins and why things were. And so my question to you is, I'm a bookseller. We Are Lit is my bookshop, and after George Floyd, there was I don't want to say a renewed interest in the book, because the book was people were already interested in it, but I saw an uptick in the interest of the book after that. And so since that time, do you feel like the book is covering what people are reading it for now? Because I find that my customers are reading it to try to understand more about the systemic racism now versus in the past, but maybe using it as a guide, if that makes sense.
So to address the first part of it, the underlining message in the book, even though this is Grand Rapids and there are aspects that are unique to Grand Rapids, this is about secondary cities and the intimacy of race relations in these places and spaces. And so I hope that it resonates beyond this space, but there are some definite unique factors that are germane to Grand Rapids, right, that make it unique. I do believe people are, and I do get some occasional emails, I say occasional, I kind of get flooded every once in a while, which is great. It's fantastic. People telling me they're utilizing this book like to understand the current temperature, right? Understand the current issues. And that's why I'm working so hard to put something together that gives you a more contemporary frame that allows that historical linkage to be seen in prose, right? So people can read through it, make their own decisions about it, right? But what I see are some of those historical connections playing themselves out currently. I want to tie the two ends together, and it's a rare opportunity that you can create a book too, because there's a demand for it, right? And now you can take these stories and extend them out and introduce the newer players and kind of treat these current issues in a way that hopefully builds on the past.
And just to continue on that, there are a wide variety of reasons why I got involved in this project, and that I'm honored to be a part of this project. But core to your question, as I mentioned, I've lived in so many cities over the course of my life, big cities like New York and Philadelphia and LA, smaller cities, in Indiana, Ohio, Florida, lots of different places. And having experienced so many diverse cities, I'm seeing so many parallels between what's happening in this city and the various cities I've experienced. And as you know, he said, and as you know, Vic and Rod and Jasmine have spoken to me about, Grand Rapids is an incredibly unique city with an incredible mix of individuals that create a unique experience of managerial systemic racism. That said, as you said, you drew parallels to your hometown. I drew parallels to my weird variety of hometowns. And so I think that's why this story, this book, and this film is so important, because I can't just make this film for this city. The story is too important. I have to make this story for everyone who is experiencing what is being experienced here. Even though there are nuanced differences between them, there's a ton that we can learn. I like the idea of like this being the case study that can be learned from in various other cities. You know, and thinking of this, you know, beyond the date that this story ends, this book kind of closes out at the end of the 60s. What's important to me, to your other point, is that there's so many things that are happening now in the city that we can't ignore. And reading this book, so many of the same things that were happening throughout the 1900s continue to happen today. As much as there has been progress, we're still dealing with very many of the same exact things. They're just dressed differently or presented differently. And so the film is covering the history, but tying that history very directly to what is happening right now. So you're going to get a lot of that.
If I can interject even at that point, I think Mr. Baird is going to ask a question as well. I have to make some acknowledgments here real quick. And Dr. Randall Jelks, who we know, wrote the first book about the journey of African Americans here in Grand Rapids, African Americans in the Furniture City, is also an advisor and a producer with us on the project. He couldn't be here with us today. Has mentored Todd in some ways, certainly both University of Michigan graduates and such, but do want to lift up Randall Jelks, but others, some in the room, some are not in the room. George Bayard himself, who's been a source of tremendous information and inspiration for us as we continued the research. Certainly Julie and her team at the Grand Rapids Public Library, where both Randall and Todd, in terms of affectionately speaks to the work that they did and the time that they spent in the library. Without question, the organization I work for, the Grand Rapids Public Schools, who are key in this book, just want to acknowledge them as well. I don't know if our associate producer, Ms. Williams, will step in, and she might be out there, but Ms. Kim Williams is an associate producer on this project as well. Certainly Pastor Shannon Jamal Hollemans. We really thank Shannon for some research that she's done with us. And do want to say this, Randall told us early on in our research that Grand Rapids has a wealth, almost an embarrassment of riches in terms of stories. And we found that in our public library. And so one of the things that we did, if you, again, when you get an opportunity, look at the poster project that we did out front on our windows. One of the things, Signing Jordan, a big supporter for encouraging us to use the window in that way. And there's over 28 people that we're documenting to show the community. And just to be clear, in a 90-minute full-length documentary film, it's impossible to tell all those stories. We truly have an embarrassment of riches of stories, which speaks to Todd doing a second book. So we're going to do our best, and Jason's doing his best in terms of getting our stories out there, but we're not going to get every story. It's just not possible. But Jason's introduced us to this concept of vignettes as well. And we do have some intentionality around creating some vignettes that'll go along with our documentary. It's not a priority in terms of our completing our vignettes, but we're in some production with that as well. But our priority, obviously, is our film. Lastly, I do want to acknowledge that we are funded for this project. And without the Stillcase Foundation, Ms. Lynn Farrell with the Fry Foundation, the Kellogg, W.K. Kellogg Foundation, who else? Oh, certainly, the Kate Pugh Walters and Rob Pugh with their foundations as well have supported us to get us this far. And I think as when we talked about, to your question, Carl, about when we'll be done, we have some creative things that we need to work through around animation and some other things that will determine when we'll get done, and we'll still raise a little bit of money. But we're good throughout our production. We probably have another shoot or two, Jason, that we have to do to complete our production. And with that, I have to introduce our partner who came in as well, Ms. Jasmine Fuentes. If you'd like to say anything or just introduce how you came to the project, you're welcome to. But ask Jasmine any questions as well. But this is your production team, and again with Randall Jelks and some others, and then Ms. Williams again as associate.
Before we ask, I do want to acknowledge two other people that were integral to the production process so far. Nat Prinzi, he's also been an executive producer, also on the ground producer for us during our shoots here in Grand Rapids. Brilliant creative mind with Better Days production company in Los Angeles. And Noelle Victoria, she's also been an incredible line producer for us throughout, so have to acknowledge them very clearly.
Absolutely, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Was there anything else, team, for that? No? All right, we had another question. Shannon, did you have a question, please?
For William and Jason, as you gather and collate these stories and try to tell this overwhelmingly rich story, what threads or thematic elements do you see sort of strongly run through all of them that will be told in the film?
You know, one of the ones that we talked about yesterday, specifically with Todd, we actually filmed the major chunk of his interview at the public library yesterday. By the way, good to see you again. One of the things that has come up a great deal in this film and in our conversations of translating this is that this is not the story of victims. People have been victimized, but they are not victims. And what's so important for us to convey in this story is that as they have faced obstacles, they have not just accepted the obstacles. This story is about the Black freedom struggle. I would argue that you could say it's about the Black freedom fight. Our people have fight in us. We have fight in us. And so there has been, I would even use the term social innovation as a tool. It's a very popular term that's popping now, but social innovation has been there since forever, since society has existed. As obstacles have been faced, what have we done as a community to understand the obstacle, look for the resources to overcome the obstacle? If the resources couldn't be there, how do we outwit the obstacle? Or how do we raise enough hell to get that obstacle to feel uncomfortable enough to change? So that's been a through theme. Another through theme, I would argue, is that there is a certain weight of existence that Black people live under on a daily basis. Understanding that this complex system of managerial racism, systemic racism, industrial racism, it can come at you from anywhere. It affects the way you make decisions on a daily basis. It affects the way you move through a city at any given moment. It's ever present. And what does that do to a person as they navigate their daily lives? What does that also do to people when they think about a future and dare to dream about a future? How much of that is, even though we dream big, how much of that is stifled? Could we be dreaming bigger if not for this burden that we carry on a daily basis? So that's another theme. Does that, whisper in the back of your ear as fear as you're living your daily life? And so what's crucial is, how do we overcome this so that we reach our entire potential? We're not living with this burden, not living with this fear. We're not living with this idea that there are absolute limitations to what we can accomplish. So that's another through line here. The other piece of it is this city cares. This city actually really cares and wants a change to happen and will never stop until it does. That's another thing. I mean, there's so many themes that, I've tossed out there. It's like, no, this is the main vein of the story. We got to go with this. And then something else comes up and I scrap that. And there's so many themes that we could play with and build off of. It's an embarrassment of riches. And as we assemble something and sit with it and soak in it, and as we look at it again, there's another kernel of something. So I could go down a list of things, but I'd say those are the three top ones that stick out in my mind that really keep me excited about this story.
Yeah, like it's really cool working with Jason because like each person that we're talking to or interviewing, he's very careful to really he wants to really tell that story visually. So we're really trying to treat this in an intimate lens. So, even if we're in small spaces, we're making these people feel larger than life because their stories are big and we're really trying to get people to connect with them in these ways. So I really appreciate Jason's approach and how he's creating each theme for each person. We just try to light it and shoot it and pick the lenses based off of those people that we're talking to. So, yeah.
Thank you, Will.
Back there, Ahmad, please.
How can racial freedom organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League of Churches and things assist you in your project now as it continues to go forward and after?
I'd say we've already intersected with the NAACP and Urban League to tell the history of their impact in this city. So that's one way. Just allowing us to incorporate them in this incredibly complex narrative is a huge way. I'd say, I was going to leave that to them. But talk to these people because fundraising is always central to the success of a project like this. As you know, telling the story of a city is a massive undertaking. There are so many stories to tell. There's so many cameras to rent. There's so much equipment to pull together. There's so many locations to rent if necessary as well. So fundraising is central to that. So I would keep that in mind. 1, storytelling. 2, fundraising support.
Yeah. And we'll just add, I think to Jason's response, Ahmad, is that history in terms of NAACP and Urban League in this treatise that Todd put together has been critical. Mm-hmm. The NAACP and the Urban League are central characters, and their leadership central characters in this story. We know we are creating a new history as well. So we appreciate you being here in the leadership of NAACP and Urban League currently, and we look forward to collaborating and building on the importance that NAACP and Urban League has in this community. One of the things I do want to introduce is that we have a parallel project that's going along with this called History Pen as well that we'll be introducing to our community. You can visit historypen.org, and for each of you that have some passions and some areas in town, we're certainly pinning many of the stories that are in our book. It's an interactive map from an international organization called the Shift Collective that we're partnering with, and that's going to be another way that we can collaborate and partner with you all in the community there. So I did want to introduce the History Pen project
Community Foundation.
in the community foundation. Thank you, Jasmine. And our Grand Rapids Community Foundation is helping us with that project specifically. Before George's question, I am remiss for not acknowledging a key partner, and that is the Community Media Center. So Chris and Ted and their team, we want to give them a big round of applause. For this space here that is serving as our base, our headquarters is the Annex, and if you've not or not familiar with the Community Media Center, get familiar with them. It's a jewel in our community, and we're grateful to be in partnership with the Community Media Center. And then after George's question, I do want us to go back and hear from Will around some of the shot selections and when you speak to lenses and what you do in your as a cinematographer. We've learned so much from the three of them, but Will sets up with Jason a lot of our shots. You all are going to be proud of what you see on film, and a lot of that is attributed to Will and his stuff. But let's come back to that, but let's get Mr. Bayard's question in, please. Sorry, sir.
Good to see you.
I know you all have identified some of the perpetrators of managerial racism, and if you've interviewed them, do you think they gave you honest answers? Do you think you got what you needed from them to complete the story?
So, as I mentioned earlier, what we've done thus far in terms of production is spoken to the people of the city who lived through these experiences. So our production to this point has been about the history of. We are, from this point, moving to who are the players now that are contributing to the situation now, and who are contributing solutions to the situation now. So we haven't yet gotten to those moments where we're like, but I'm certain we will. I also need you to understand me. I think one of the most powerful words in the English language is why. I lead with why, and I ask you why 5 to 10 times during a conversation. And I'm not going to let you sit on a flat answer unless I know you don't have the answer. With that, I am not making a puff piece about this city. We're spending too much time and putting too much passion behind this. I'm also not setting people up to fall on their faces. I'm not a gotcha kind of reporter. I'm a person who wants to understand why you exist in these circumstances, why you are contributing, how you are contributing. And if you believe yourself to be on the right side of history, great. But at the same time, we are all contributing to the way things are now, and we are all potential contributors to the positive outcome on the other side. And so I'm going to ask those questions. So to your point, have we faced anyone who has not been forthright with answers? Not yet, but we probably will. And when we do, I'm not going to let that sit.
And I may have missed a question here, sister in the hat. Did you have a question as well?
Just a quick comment.
Who's it?
And that is,
I'm sorry, Ms. Triffett.
just a quick point that, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but, you were talking about churches, and that's what kind of sparked it. The, head of the church, the international head of the Church of South Africa is located on, what is that? 28th Street and Kalamazoo?
That's correct.
Yeah, in Kalamazoo. I mean, who not only created this whole approach to managerial, systemic, structural racism,
but even had the nerve to make a policy and a government policy. That church is located here. A lot of the people who attend that church and hold positions, who have held positions in the city, who still do hold positions in that city, are connected with that church. Now, I don't know what kind of strides have been made within that church to shed, to change, whatever. But I'm just saying, that layer is so important. I used to teach and I'd say, well, you know, where do you think that the headquarters, this is back in the 80s, and there's, you know, a lot of things going on in the 80s with, I'm not mentioning the name, but that particular church. And I'd say, you know, 28th Street in Kalamazoo, and my students would just look. And I just think that that's a really important issue as to the why, you know, things are what they are in Grand Rapids.
I want you to trust me.
Okay.
I want you to trust me.
Okay.
As I was indoctrinated into this story, that is one of the things that I found most fascinating about this city. The interesting and perhaps loose, but not so loose, connections between apartheid and the structural racism that happens in this city. It's fascinating to me. Fascinating. So I want you to trust me. That's going to be there.
And I'll just contribute in this way, that Todd spoke to, and we know through the details in his book, and Jason spoke to the details that we as producers are centered in on. I'll just add that we've not run into any deniers of these facts. So let's just say that. It's gonna be difficult to impossible for any institution in this community to deny these facts and the evidence that Todd has researched and the stories that we're telling. And we're telling this story as people that love Grand Rapids as well, and who acknowledge that disparities are real, race is real, and the challenges that we face with disparities in this community is real. And so some of the institutions, I want to acknowledge the city of Grand Rapids, as I acknowledge the Grand Rapids Public School, who are in the book as well, and others who have supported us as well, and who support and who want to see this community change. We have a great community. When we talk about faith, I won't proselytize here, but when we talk about faith, we have a strong faith community. And one of the things that we learned about the excitement when Todd, after his book, when the mayor named it the Book of the Year in 2016, is that people are hungry for change. The good people of Grand Rapids are hungry for change. And we know that stories are directly tied into both our lineage, our legacies, and our wealth as well. And so this isn't a one-off in terms of our producing this film. We're going to continue to tell stories about Grand Rapids and the institutions and the individuals and the legacy, particularly of those who've been locked out of telling their stories. So we're here to stay. As we said, there's a exponential amount of stories in this community, really amazing stories that as we lift up these stories, we believe we're going to lift up this entire community as well. And so we're not, shirking anything. We're not running from anything. We're not afraid of the truth in any way. And we're going to tell these stories. But what we find in 90 minutes, it's just not possible to tell all those stories. Right? So Signy, in terms of, some of the stories that we know, Signy has an incredible story with her family and her legacy there, that we're going to do a vignette there. Shannon has some incredible work that she's doing. The work that Mr. Baird is doing with the Grand Rapids African American Museum and Archives. Burl Maglici and the story that he's doing on his family with Sojourner Truth, that is a statue and buried an hour or so away from here in Battle Creek. Just tremendous stories that we're going to continue to still tell. So, ask another question or two, but before then, Will, if you can tell us a little bit about this idea of how you're choosing your cameras, lighting, and just to highlight some of the folks that we've interviewed as well, and then we'll take a couple other questions.
Yeah. So like my approach with storytelling is I'm a servant to the story, and I'm really just here to make sure that the city and everybody is represented in a proper way. So when it comes to like cameras and lenses and things like that, it just really just depends on the emotion that I'm trying to capture. But not only that, it's really like it's about the team that we have here, and we have a lot of local people from here that are extremely talented, like Denard, Ibrahim right there, David in the back, Ken, Era back there. They're all amazing, talented people that are from here, so they're also able to give me an insight, on things that are really going on, and from there we just approach it and take it one day at a time, and I think that's it.
Yeah. I'd say on top of that, bringing Will into this project was so crucial for me. My background is as a writer, but also as a visual creative director. And so storytelling is this combination of so many elements. What is the word, or before anything, what is the idea? What is central to the message that you want to get across? And then how do you use visuals? How do you use sound? How do you use pacing? How do you use color? How do you use location? How do you use set dressing to serve that central idea? All of these things come at an intersection to explode and amplify out these stories that we need to tell. It was crucial for me to bring someone like Will into this because he is extraordinarily painterly in the way he captures images. He's also idea-driven in the way he captures images. I'm going to be rude right now, but there are a lot of people out there who call themselves directors of photography or cinematographers. They own cameras, and they know how to use a camera. There are people who are true cinematographers who understand what photography is, who understand what light means and what light does, how it reflects off of surfaces to tell the story of what it's illuminating. He is one of those people. He also is a technology nerd, and so he knows everything about the equipment that we're using and everything about the equipment that we should be using. As we spoke before, it's down to the details. Every detail matters. And so I pick a guy like him because he understands the details of all of these things. I can sometimes speak artistically in the abstract, and I can share that with Will, and he understands what that means in execution and knows the right piece of equipment, the right lighting circumstances to bring all of that to life. When we came back this time, we filmed an interview with Todd at the library. But this time we came back with a very specific theme of how we wanted to capture this city and the mood for the story that we're telling in this particular moment. And, shadow was very central to that. In the way managerial racism occurs in this city, the way it kind of haunts the people of this city, the way it kind of envelops the entirety of the city, it was important that, the idea of shadows and the way they can, paint and shape a city and also shroud the details of a city. We came in with that kind of thinking and working with Will, what times of day are going to be the right times of day to get the richest, most contrasty shadows while still getting that vibrant light from the sun. I gotta say something for real. This city does clouds like no other city does. Like every time we're pointing the cameras up, I'm just like, are you kidding me?
We don't have clouds in LA, but like
Yeah,
twice a year.
yeah.
So.
And we certainly don't have clouds like this when we do get cloudy. But I say that because there are things that happen with light through these clouds, like, you know, those God rays that you see in older paintings. You all get that on a daily basis. I'm offended that I don't see that enough. You get that on a daily basis. How can we use that as a tool? How can we use that as a tool to highlight things? How can we use that as a tool to hide things? Really, it is about being poetic in the way we tell the story, about being emotional in the way we tell our story. You know, a lot of documentaries, you point and shoot the camera and let the people tell the story, and that can be wildly effective. But when we bring that painterly approach to it, all we're doing is we're not overshadowing the stories, we're amplifying the stories. We're also using this imagery to tell a nuanced detail of a story that may not come across in the words, but now we're creating the feel of it. That's why we're here. That's why Will is here.
So as we move towards the wrap of our production, which we anticipate being done this fall sometime, we also are going to have some other events that we are doing. As I mentioned, our vignettes, our history pin project. We're at the, tail end almost of organizing the golf outing, sometime maybe in mid-October. They golf until the snow falls here. So we're looking at that as well. If there's no other questions pressing from the audience, we're always available. Here you can email us at production@grandstandpictures.com. If you have any questions, any feedback that you want to give us, you want to press on any questions that you have to our director, to Dr. Robinson, our partner, and certainly to our cinematographer, Will. If there's no other questions, two things that we're going to ask that you do. Please take some of that salad home. We have some to-go plates with you. It's, I think, a Greek salad or?
It's a Mediterranean creation from char.
Yeah. Really, really, really good. Please take that home with you. And then two, I think it'd be appropriate to have Dr. Robinson just say a few words to close us out, please.
I feel like I'm supposed to say a prayer, a benediction of some sort. My father would be very proud right now, as he is a bishop. Actually, I'll just take this opportunity to mention that I also wrote a children's series to this. So I'm in the process of trying to finalize that with perhaps a publisher of choice. I have 3 wonderful daughters who are very young, and my youngest was reading the book, and she was struggling at age 7 getting through the first couple pages, and from there it was born that perhaps we should maybe break this down a little bit more. And so my daughter served as the artist, my oldest, and she did some of the imagery and recreating some of the main characters, and the hope is that that will go out to the community as well and be able to reach people at an earlier age. So maybe it's a good time to say that. So
absolutely,
be on the lookout for that. And I do want to take the opportunity to thank the team. I was pursued by several different folks, and when I met Vic initially, they were ushering me out of, and I say that humbly, ushering me out of a talk, because I was staying too long talking to people, and they were like, you need to go, get out of here. And Vic was waiting very strategically for me, and he caught me and slid me this way, and we went and we had breakfast, and we started talking through some ideas, and I told him I've kind of heard this before, and he said we're different, and I'm a little hesitant, and we continued to talk, and I found out they are very much different. And as I learned more about them and their origins and their story and their connections to the city, it really amplified a lot of what I was trying to do here, their investment in it, their interest in causes and emotion, right? So it spoke to a lot of things that connected with me, and I couldn't be more excited to be a part of this group with these folks. So with that, thank you all, because it doesn't happen without you all, and thank you all too. And I guess you guys have a good, blessed rest of the day. That's the best I can do on a benediction. And I'll be around to see you if you want to talk.
So go ahead, mingle a bit. Todd will be available over here. Thank you, Megan, over here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting that project. Also, we do have these books. I think Carl has one. Someone else has one.
Check. I would also say, please visit our website, grandstandpictures.com. Grandstandpictures.com.